just ask me. How nothing's off limits. Just kind of guide it how you want, man.
Got it,
And
man. Dude, I
they
tell
can
you
all go
what,
to my social later.
folks, welcome back to the Jeff Robertson Show. Thursday, 2:30 live, special episode. Me and this guy's been trying to catch up for a minute now. Former firefighter, which is our connection through public safety. So I was looking for some public safety guests and ran across my man, Erik Holt, who's a former federal employee, fire chief, who followed the law, reported election misconduct, and paid a heavy price for it. After refusing to destroy evidence and standing on his oath to the Constitution, Erik was fired. Bank accounts frozen, emergency services were disrupted, and his case was dismissed before even reaching a jury. This is not theory, y'all. This is a guy who's lived this stuff. And we're going to talk today a little bit about what happens speaking up when you're speaking up collides with power. Man, Erik Holt, welcome to the show, man. I'm serious when I tell you that. I appreciate all your patience with our schedules trying to match up, but I'm excited to hear about your journey and your story. So, I mean, dude, I like to kick off my podcast very conversational and a day in your life and what happens. But I think, man, we can get right into the grit there. If you want to walk us through kind of your career, I saw you had some military in there, some federal service, and then you jumped into the fire department. Man, you take it away, and I might have some questions and just throw my hand up and be like, "Whoa, wait a minute," along the way, dude. But take it away, man. Shoot the let us know to walk me through like kind of your life and how you ended up at the fire department.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, first of all, thank you so much. I'm glad our schedules finally worked out to get on here. So thank you for having me. Thanks for the listeners that are going to tune in to hear the story. But man, I'm just a normal dude. I grew up in a small town America out in Northern California, not the crazy coastal California. I lived around cattle ranches and in the gold country in the foothills. So very conservative upbringing. Um, but small town America's, the options for what you're gonna do are limited. I was so lucky during my teenage years. Local fire chief, volunteered fire department when I was like 16. Came into the grocery store I was working at and said, "Hey, you want to learn about firefighting?" I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but I'll show up." And
Sure.
I went to the first training, like, within a few days probably. And I mean, that just changed my life. That first moment I put on firefighting gear, I was in love with it, man. And so, my adult life started at the precipice of a war. So I was sophomore in high school when 9/11 happened. I mean, I literally watched it unfold from the classroom. And then I was into this firefighting thing. And so, I always tell people, I was an 18-year-old man in '03 when we started the Iraq War in good fiscal shape. So I did what, you know, I think young American boys should do when we're at war, and I joined the service. So uh, went in '03, June of '03. I went to basic training, did 5 years active duty. I served in '05, '06 in Ramadi, Iraq, which was
Yeah.
quite the tourist hub back then, if we want to
Yeah.
frame it that way. A little spicy city there, but got out in '08. Immediately was hired as a civilian firefighter on DoD base, so Fort Hood, Texas. Uh, and Man, it was just a gift. I started my professional firefighting career. I started a family. My first daughter was born in '07, and just started my professional career. That led me in 2013. I transferred up to Fort Carson Fire Department, and just for people to understand, these are cities during the day on military bases. So although we're federal employees on a federal installation, we just ran a normal fire department.
Yeah.
Um, and so Fort Hood, I think back when I was down there, it was like 85,000 daily population on the base, and Fort Carson was a little smaller, probably in the 60,000 range. So we just, did my thing, promoted up, and eventually life took a little turn. I got a divorce in 2018. That was, let's say, contentious, which led to quite a long battle. And ultimately in 2022, the court granted me full custody of both my daughters. And so I had 18 years of federal service at that point, but faced with being a single dad of two teen girls, priorities change a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So r- my shifts on the fire department were 48 hours long, I started to look towards something else, which is weird because I was so in love with the fire service, man. I loved hanging out with the guys. Life was absolutely perfect in that realm, but this change happened, right? And being a dad came first. So local opportunity opened up. Um, I had done like incident management team and some other things as I moved into this community during the COVID timeframe. I'd like bought a house, moved out of a little farther out of the city, all that. And so I had started working with the county leadership and doing incident management. So basically, I got a call April of 2022, which was just before the court order had happened. Like we were leading up to that process. Those are slow. Um, and they asked if I could serve as an interim. They had a situation involving a local fire department. The chief prior to me, you know, I won't go into that, but
Yeah.
got him up in a situation. He was put on admin leave and all sorts of contentiousness. So basically, the board had resigned. This guy's put on admin leave. They asked me to come in and kind of keep things stable. So I do that. 2 weeks turned into 5 months of serving as an interim chief. And because of all of the turmoil, like the board of directors had to be reconstituted. There was no board. So that took a special process through the county commissioners.
Erik, when you say board, is it the fire department board, like a board of governors over the
Yeah.
fire? Okay, gotcha. That's one
Yeah.
thing I was
So
telling you. I wanted to clear up, just so. All right, look, I'll tell you what happens where I'm from, like the county I grew up in. We have a board of supervisors that's elected by
yeah.
the entire county that oversees our county administrator, and the county administrator would be the overseeing the fire chief, and then there's volunteers. So just to clear that up, so everybody understands that when we say board, we're talking about your fire department board too.
Yeah, let me break that down a little bit. So county level, sometimes in different jurisdictions, county does have fire.
Yep.
Um, in the jurisdiction I was at, there wasn't a county fire department, so you would have special districts. And each special district had a governing board. So when we talk about this story, mine was a special district board that is
Yep.
elected as well. Just their only authority is the fire department, not the other,
Got it.
county government.
Yeah, yeah.
And then obviously there's cities that have their own boards that operate very similar to how your county does. Um, so anyways, yeah, like 2 weeks was the phone call. Can you do this interim role for a couple weeks? I'm like, yeah, sure, man. So I had actually called my fire chief and asked, like permission to do so. He was cool with it. I was taking my own personal leave, kind of, burning
Yep.
that off. And I was doing it unpaid. But 2 weeks turned into 5 months where I didn't get paid. I had exhausted all of my leave. And in that 5 months is when the court granted, its orders basically. And so now it was a very real, like, I do have full custody of these kids. And, um, you know, the proposed or thought of changes kind of needed to become reality. And so when I had taken that interim role, I had no mindset of I wanted to do that permanently. But because that court order came, I ended up applying. I ended up, after the board had been reconstituted through this special process through the county, their first order of business was to hire a permanent chief. And so I had applied, I had interviewed, I was selected. So in September of 2022, I oathed in as the permanent fire chief and signed a contract with them and everything. And just got to work, man. I
Paid
inherited
position,
it.
Erik. Paid, like you're not a volunteer chief.
Yeah.
It's a paid, compensated position.
Yeah, yeah, and paid pretty well. You know what I mean? Like, it was still when I inherited the department, it was like five people. Man, they had the chief before me was the first like full time paid guy. That didn't go well, and so I really inherited a broken department. There was four or five responders, um, very limited, if any, qualifications that backed, which isn't uncommon in the volunteer world. I mean, sometimes you get a basic course and you kind of just learn on the job. Um, the metric that I always monitored and was obsessive about was response times. Okay, and so we call it an aggregate response time in the fire service. But if Jeff calls 911, you pick up the phone, that starts the clock. Dispatch has their amount of time it takes to, you know, input everything in CAD and dispatch people out. And then the time from when the fire department gets alerted until somebody arrives at Jeff's home who's a qualified responder, that's the aggregate response time. And so the average when I took over was about 19 minutes, which to me was just not an acceptable time
Mm-mm.
frame. Okay. And our demographics were something that mattered because we lived in what you would call like a retirement community. So I had 66 square mile district that served about 6,000 people. The average age was 53 years old.
Mm.
So the national average of age is about 33 to 35, depending on where you're at. So we had a much higher um, population of elderly, which has unique medical needs, right?
Yep.
Breathing difficulties, you know, a lot of them are oxygen dependent, mobility dependent, right? So that 19-minute metric mattered to me a lot. And again, we had 4 or 5 people. So my whole vision when I interviewed and from the day I was hired was to build something that mimicked a professional fire department standard. And so again, this started September of 2022 when I actually had like the permanent ownership and vision to carry forward. So by January, February timeframe, when things start to sort of take a change, we were up to 62 members of the department. We had brought on 11 EMTs or got them trained. We had another 7 in the pipeline, so we were about to get to about 20 EMTs. We had coverage 24/7 within the district, responding from the fire station, and our response times got down to 7-8 minute
Yeah.
average, which is a national standard for
Yeah.
professional fire department. So we accomplished all this within a 6 month period of time, which was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, man. You know, I was on the clock 24/7, 365, and I've never been more dedicated to a position. I mean, I literally responded to every call. I was there training. I was out recruiting, bringing on young, hungry people. And so another metric that's really important is the youth that we recruited. You know, our average age was mid 20s, when a lot of fire departments that are volunteer based, you know, they average 50, 60 year olds because
Yeah.
it's usually people that are retired and still have a sense of duty. And so by every metric that you could measure, we were doing a really good job.
So and just for you're a paid fire chief in an all volunteer department.
Yeah. Well, and so I mean, I hired some
Yeah.
part-time captains, and I brought in a rank structure and stuff. Yeah, I mean, we started to professionalize it, but
But not,
I
you
was
said
the
you're
only
trying to,
full-time
folks.
guy.
This is what Eric's explaining right here is professionalizing and to the standards in a volunteer system. It's hard because there's just you're competing with their time and their life, and it's man, that takes some dedicated team too, Eric, to get you. And the other thing is, folks, that's your insurance premiums is based on that aggregate response time as well. So, like the benefit of the community of getting that down, like you did, amazing work, dude. I just want to point out, like the volunteer side is like you're not going into a well, like it's everybody has lives, and the fire department they're very responsive. They're going to go when those tones go off, but we try to minimize their time in training because they're volunteers. And to do that with an all
Yeah,
volunteer or mainly volunteer department, dude, that's awesome. I just want to point that out.
it is tough. It's much easier to say I will compensate you for your time, and
Yeah.
this will be your livelihood. Um, in the volunteer world, you have to create something that people just love to be a part of, and you have to, as the chief, be the hub of that, right? You have
Yep.
to extol those virtues. And so it's not an easy game, but we were very, very successful in doing that. So where we would have full crews staying, where you'd have a paid part-time captain on shift in coverage, and then we would have additional firefighters uh, that were young, hungry, and got certified that we were sending to school, staying there. So our response times were quick, and we were rivaling the paid departments that I came from. So you know, by every metric you can say, it's as we turn this into the next stage of the story, that's where we start from. So in May of 2023, now we flipped the calendar, with all of that success, the board of directors elections are coming up, and one more metric in here is community support. So when I had come on board, I said kind of a 6 month target that I wanted to uh, have a community event. And so what I called it was the family fire muster. And it was a time for us to show off new equipment, training our personnel. And I really just did it as a small town sort of barbecue vibe. And we had kids competitions, we had uh, auto extrication demonstration, and literally we had bought a rescue truck, we bought brand new equipment, and we were demonstrating it. And the first real world extrication with this new equipment came in live in front of everybody. So we went out and did it. It was an amazing event. Like there's some YouTube videos on it. And the prior fundraising event that I could see in the records was like $8,000 for a day. We did 27,000 in one day.
It's crazy.
And this is 5 days before the election took place. Okay, so we've got the success of the department. We've got the community support that showed out and actually donated additional money.
Yeah.
All of it. And so May 2nd, 2023, the election happens. And it was super contentious. Is our feed okay, Jeff? Are we cutting out?
No, you're good. You're flowing good with me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was getting a little echo. Sorry about that. So May 2nd, 2023, like there was a huge contentious opposing force that said, we want to come in and we'll do everything better. They were attacking me. They were attacking the incumbent board that had supported the vision, that had supported the growth of the department and the success of the department. And it got real ugly. And so a law firm was hired to administer the election under obviously state law. My piece was nothing to do with the election. I'm a fire chief. I think most people understand that we don't get involved in elections. So just for everybody listening, I didn't vote in it. I wasn't present for it. I had nothing to do with the election, but it was held at the fire station. So because of the contentious nature, the law firm and I decided, like, I'll work remote from home. They'll host the election. They'll do their thing. We'll just go about our days. And so, I think everybody probably understands, like, emergency calls for service still happened during that period of time.
How many calls do y'all do a night? What do you think? What's your call volume per day? I know it varies per day, but you got like 3 a day, you doing 6 a day?
It ebbs and flows. I mean, the average was about 600 a year in this district.
I got you.
So
About 2 a day.
Calls is average. But some days you'll have no calls and some days you'll have 7, 8. So, this day ended up being somewhat busy. I think we had two minor calls in the morning and then a big call. So we had like a difficulty breathing call. We respond, guys, short of breath, but we need to transport him. He's got some stuff going on. So we call for a medevac to land at the fire station. So, as a fire chief, I don't care what's happening there. That's our medevac landing site. That's where we're going. And so we start to transport the guy. Not we, the ambulance service is a special district as well. So we all respond. I'm heading back to the station to set up the LZ. They're transporting the patient. Well, the patient goes into cardiac arrest, has a heart attack, and they begin CPR. And so they arrive there, the helicopter lands, I land the helicopter, I shut down the parking lot, all this stuff, and we do CPR, and the guy doesn't make it, unfortunately. So you don't put them on a bird after, they've been declared. And so my job, as a local fire chief, is go inform the family, like, this individual has passed. We did everything we could. We're here to support you, all that. So myself and the EMS lieutenant and I think the paramedic all went over. We informed the family. That's never a fun situation. That's never an easy conversation, but it was my duty, right? So we do that. I come back where we restock our medical bags, all that stuff. So I actually am physically at the fire station for this part of it. And then as I'm getting ready to leave, a citizen that had just voted came up and told me something very, very concerning. And so the complaint was that she had, stuffed her ballot in the box and was walking out, but in front of her, a poll watcher was walking out. And that poll watcher was on their phone, which to begin with, in the electioneering zone is against the
No,
law
no, yeah,
as the statute reads. Okay, they are there to work the election. They're not allowed to have phones and all that. So what the voter had overheard was, and this is what I was told. I just heard the poll watcher say, in the electioneering zone, did you pay them? And then was getting a vehicle description and says, oh, is this the vehicle pulling in right now? And then, so I stopped and I watched the poll watcher. And so, they're on their phone and they get off the phone call and then motion people over, get in close, and I could hear the poll watcher tell them who to vote for. And I want to let you know that as the fire chief. And I was like, well, hey, very concerning, but you need to go over to the election official and lodge this complaint if that's what you wish to do. So I take that individual to the election administrator. So it's called a designated election official. So that's kind of my interactions with it, right? At the end of the day, I have to go secure the fire station, and I have a quick, brief conversation with the DEO who's leaving, who's part of the law firm, right? And she just looks like she's fought Holyfield for 15 rounds. And I'm like, are you okay? She's like, what a crazy day. Um, and like, no hiding, this is the law firm that actually represents the district. So I have had a professional, like, working relationship for 6 months. I actually do know them, at least by texts and phone calls and emails, right?
right.
Not like on a personal level. um, but that's an important factor because they actually do represent the district, uh, so that they ensure that, like, our compliance with the law is, you know how it's supposed to be, I guess is the way to say that. But they also took on this additional duty of administering elections so that nobody could question the validity or,
Yeah,
like, the integrity of the process, right? A law firm is not going to violate law. So, anyways, the next day comes around, like, there was an initial shock of the election results. One, they were 3 times more voter turnout than was expected, which is unusual. But in a contentious election, you kind of, in the back of your mind, you're like, well, maybe people motivated others to come out, right? The other surprising thing was no incumbents had won re-election, and they ran on the success. And we had just had, like I mentioned, 5 days prior, like, hundreds of community members come out and donate money. Why would they not then? Why would they donate money and then not support them with their vote,
yeah,
right? But nonetheless, as the fire chief, my allegiance wasn't to anything or any individual. It was the fire department and the community. That's what I am paid to do. I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into building this. My allegiance is to the department, not whoever got elected. So I didn't really concern myself with it. But like a day or two later, I'm in the local little, like, market, right? Literally probably just grabbing some ground beef to go cook my kids dinner. And somebody else comes up and they're like, hey, I got a complaint for you. When I voted, the poll watchers were recording me and, like, making some pretty nasty gestures at me and this and that. And I'm like, what? So I give them the information to contact the DEO. But now I've heard 2 complaints, man. So I and I called the DEO. I'm like, hey, I just got another complaint. I had brought you on the election day, that person, and she, again, there's a professional relationship here. They do represent the district. She's like, yeah, we've gotten a couple other complaints. There's, like, actually something we're really concerned with right now. We're kind of trying to figure it out. And I'm like, okay, well, like, let me know what you need. I'm gonna keep being a fire chief. Um, but when I tell this story, this is like from election day when I heard that first complaint, and now we're like 2, 3 days later, maybe. I call it and I describe it as this morality of fire in my belly, man. And everybody that believes in something or has a moral compass
yeah,
has felt that, like, burning
yep,
uneasiness, right?
yeah,
So this is where everything kind of unfolds, and just for the essence of time, like, I grappled with this for a few days, and after that conversation, like, there's an inferno burning inside me. But just to remind everybody, I'm a single dad.
yeah,
So I have two teen girls at the time that rely on me. This is my livelihood. And I make a decision. So, like, just to walk everybody through, I do the dad thing after work, cook them dinner, hang out with them, tuck them into bed while I'm, like, running through all this in my head. And I literally sit down on my bed after like they're in bed, just sitting there, like talking out loud to myself of like, this is not a good idea for you, me personally, but you're grappling with this. What decision are you going to make, Eric? And maybe people aren't going to think that's a normal course of action. I won't say that it is normal to talk to yourself outside, out loud, I guess. But this is what happened, man. And I was just grappling with this so much that I said, all right, I'm going to do it. I cannot move on with life thinking that something that I've worked so hard for could be undermined, and that a local level election could be, compromised in some way.
Yeah.
We're post 2020 election at this point, right? So like we've all been through what we heard of the 2020 elections. I'm in Colorado, which was like a central hub of that. Tina Peters was being tried in, if you don't know Tina's story, like get into it because
Yeah.
it's very important. But this is all happening. And so like election stuff is very faux pas, man, at the time. And I just literally was like, all right, I'm going to look into whatever I need to look into to get my answer. And whatever the consequences of that are, I will take on. Remember, though, that's not super easy because I have to look two girls in the face,
Yeah.
man. And so I wake up the next day with a plan in my head. I go to work, I get off, I come home, change my clothes, I go to Walmart, and I go buy some thumb drives. And then from Walmart, I drive to this third party company that owns and operates the security system for the fire station. And I said, here's some thumb drives. I will pay for it out of pocket. Uh, this I need the security camera from every relevant camera on May 2nd from this time to this time. And this is important for people to understand, especially when it goes into the court stuff that we'll get to. I did this as an individual citizen. I paid for it out of my own pocket. And people go, well, how could you go get that footage? Well, everybody understands what a FOIA is. Now, I didn't go through that formal route of submitting it because I didn't know how to go straight to the company. Like if you wanted to look into it, Jeff, you'd say, hey, here's a FOIA request. Who has the security lease and who operates that? And then you would go to them, right? Um, I didn't have to do that because I had the knowledge already. I just went straight to the source. But it's a FOIA, it's an open record, it's a tax funded public building. So that security footage is open. I just knew the route to go get it. So I do that. And I always talk about, man, like they called me like the next day and they're like, hey, come pick it up. So I go over, plain clothes, not in my command vehicle, nothing, like my own personal truck. I pick it up, I pay with my own bank card. And I described this as like they handed me this thumb drive back, and it was like holding the nuke launch codes, man. It tingled when it touched my skin.
Because you
Because
like me, because you like, I got the good. It's just going to tell the story. This is it. It's either going, if
yeah,
everybody, yes, it's going, yes, smoking guns.
it was either there or it
It's
wasn't,
not.
but this is what would show it. And I guess what it was is I didn't know what it was, but I had now entered something I couldn't come back from, man. I'm now investigating this. So I go home, I cook dinner again, I put the kids to bed, and I'm like, what the hell am I even gonna look for? I have no idea. So I sit down with my personal laptop and I just Google what are the election laws in the state of Colorado, and there's special laws for special districts. So I print those all out, and in that is a list of rules. And so I have the rules and I plug the thumb drive in, and it's something like 41, 42 hours of footage. It was a 12-hour election day, and there's four cameras. One of the cameras was like motion, so if nobody was in there, it wasn't active, right? So I basically have like 42 hours of footage I have to sit and review with no clue what I'm looking for, and I just start watching, man. And so 1 hour clips, and what I did, and it's easier for people to go to my socials and you can actually see this security footage, which we'll plug and you can post.
Yeah,
But
yeah. We'll make sure. I'll make sure
uh,
we get that in there, folks.
all right, cool. So the first thing that jumps out is like rule one is like no electronic recording devices, no recording of anything happening. And I'm like a few minutes in, man, like 20, 30 minutes in, and like one of the poll watchers opens their laptop and they're recording the room. You can see it on the laptop camera because the security camera's behind them. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know that's wrong. And so I put a little tally mark by that rule. Okay. And so from that moment, I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. I'll just go through this. And every time I can read in black and white, this is against the rules, I'll put a tally mark. So I go through 42 hours of footage, 43 hours, whatever it was, man. It was a lot. And when I get done with the final camera and the final clip, I'm like looking, and there's hundreds of tally marks on different rules. And I was like, okay, there's something here. Like I knew that it wasn't a wasted effort at that point because you can't accidentally violate the law hundreds of times in a 12-hour day, right? It has to be a concentrated effort. So then I make the attorney aware, I make the incumbent board president who's in that like lame duck period aware of what I found. But I still was at this point where I was like, I gotta actually pin down, is this a coordinated scheme or is it just haphazard accidents of violations of law? And so I go back through, I don't have to watch it minute by minute again, but I start to document who's committing the violation that I see, what time it was, all this stuff. And I'm just kind of breezing through it, man. And so what I ended up figuring out was, okay, the first thing I saw was voters would come in. You could see them come in the door, register to get their ballot, go behind the screen. And then when they would leave the voting box screens, they would look at the poll watchers and some were secretive, some were really overt. Like there's a couple where there's like very obvious hat tips, there's thumbs up, there's points, and it's always at these poll watchers. And another important factor of this is the poll watchers were assigned by the candidates, and only the people that won had poll watchers.
Yeah.
So there were 6 poll watchers, 5 candidates that had won. And I was like, that's suspicious. In small town, maybe a couple people will, say hi to their friends that are over there, but not hundreds of people in the same manner. And remember, the complaint that I received was like something was overheard. So I go to that moment where I could see on my call card, oh, I was at the station around this time. I know who the complainant was. Let me follow it, right? And so I get to the point where the outside camera takes over and there's audio. There's some choppy wind and it's not clean audio, like isolated, but I find it. And I find the lady on her phone and I can hear her. The wind cuts the did you pay part, which, that's probably the most important part. But I couldn't hear that part. But I could clearly hear, is this the vehicle pulling in right now? Oh, is this them? Okay. Chops out a little bit. And then I can see her motioning people over. And she gets in close and you can hear her. And I was like, confirm what the complaint was. There's enough there for me to corroborate it. And then there was 2 more points that I'll kind of talk about. Again, people can go to my socials and see the rest of it. But every time those voters would do something, I could see like the poll watchers looking around and they were doing an action and they were in concert with each other. And what I finally caught in the footage that I didn't the first time is they all had track counters. So now I could put together a couple important pieces of info. One, somebody was on the phone with that poll watcher coordinating people showing up, right? So that's a scheme. Somebody's off-site coordinating. I can confirm that the poll watchers are in on it because they're the ones doing it. And so I could also confirm that she told the voters who to vote for, and then when they left, they did that and counted it.
Yep.
So they're keeping track of the vote count. Super illegal. That's conspiracy, man. Or I would, as a non-legal attorney, say that's a conspiracy. But at that stage of it, man, I couldn't say, okay, well, you can count all the votes during the day, but unless you can confirm what the official ballot count is, it's iffy, right? If you're going to guarantee a victory. So one of the other cameras, that motion activated one I talked about, was an engine bay. But in the engine bay, they set up the official ballot counting at a table. And when they did that, there's audio there too. And I caught the poll watchers in there as their official ballot counting. Election judges are counting, and they're calling out names and they're tabulating the official count. And they're sitting there in front of them clicking. So now I could confirm not only did they coordinate, they were keeping track of the total votes that day, and then they were confirming them in the official ballot count. So at any minute during the day, they knew how many people they needed to incentivize to show up. And then there's a conversation again on the outside camera. One candidate, 3 poll watchers, and they described the whole scheme, man.
Really?
What they were doing, what the counts were, all of it. And it's captured on high definition video with audio.
Let me tell everybody, Eric.
So
For the record, let me explain. Conspiracy. According to Google, a conspiracy is a secret agreement between 2 or more people to do something illegal or harmful, like committing a crime, defrauding, or overthrowing the government, requiring an agreement and an overt act or an overt action to further the plan. That's a standard definition I learned in law enforcement school and all the schools I've been in. Folks, that's what conspiracy means, just so you know.
Yeah, and this is why I have to be careful, because I'm not an attorney. I cannot accuse somebody of it.
Yeah.
But by the standard definition, it sounds that way, right?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, absolutely.
So-
yeah. That's why I wanted to put the definition out there, Eric, so everybody understands. Like, hey, by rule, the conspiracy is this. So far, this story matches.
Yeah. So I now reach back out to the law firm. I informed the incumbent board president that's still in office what I found, like with an exclamation, right? The attorney was like, all right, I'm gonna contact the DA's office, you know. So a lot of the stuff is happening, like the incumbent president has her duties and she files like a court injunction. The attorney contacts the district attorney's office with the concerns, but it's not like any of them are coordinating like what I would do, right? So it's 3 sort of legs of a tripod here. But eventually I get told, like, hey, the DA is looking at this. And so I call the DA's office and I'm like, hey, this is what I've got. I meet with the DA investigator and I show them everything. Like, they were given an Excel spreadsheet with who committed it, the timestamp, what the offense was, all of it. And I know we're kind of getting close on time, but so
You're good. Hey, listen,
33
keep
days after
going.
the election.
Don't skip over anything, man. You're good. You keep rolling. Don't.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Well, this is when it gets into the real corruption part of it, right? So I meet with, like, May 19th, like 2.5 weeks after the election, I meet with the DA investigator, like a post-certified law enforcement officer. Meets me. I'm off duty. You know, I show him what I found, and I give him this information, and he is super alarmed by it. He literally tells me it is clear that election violations happened, and he puts that in his report, which I have. So from the day I met with him until I no longer had a job was 33 days. And the people that did it were the people caught on camera. The candidates, they decided they were going to skip the legal process to, like, assume power, and they just declared themselves in power one day. And like 19 days from the day that they declared power until they fired me happened. And they fired me in a humiliating public way where they, like, rented a commercial popcorn machine, man. And they drummed up all these, like, false reasons, man. So, you know, I'm faced with not having a job. I still have these 2 girls to care for. What do you do, right? So I go out and I get an attorney. And this attorney, like, I said, oh, this will be easy. We'll get you your job back. Like, This will all, very quickly resolve. And I'm like, okay, thank you. All I wanted was to get my job back and resume life.
Yeah.
So I filed a lawsuit in the District Court of Colorado, the federal court, for First Amendment retaliation. When I do that, of course, they get served, right? And so this gets important here in a minute. I'll get back to this, but like I filed a lawsuit like July 14th. They of course deny everything, and they start the procedural game. And so for 2 years, man. Let me go back. For a year, I couldn't get another job, no matter what I tried to do. I literally like had to sell my home, the only asset that I had. Uh, I had to pay an attorney. I paid an insane amount of money. Like I think we're up over $90,000 that I paid to date for it, right? Because I couldn't find a job, I ended up moving back across the country, and I'm living in a camp with my girls, my dog, and my girlfriend, trying to like rebuild life. And I'm blacklisted from hell. So the whole time we're trying, like, my only hope is that this will get to a point in the federal court where I can come in and present the evidence to a jury.
Yeah.
2 years goes by, all procedural. Not one bit of evidence have I ever got to show. But the judge granted them summary judgment and dismissed my case May of this last year. So May of 2025. And I was devastated because that was my own, like, I've sold everything I own. I've given it to an attorney. I had just started working by this point. Like, I'm earning income again, but like trying to rebuild. I'm renting like a house for, we're like reestablishing, man, but it's rough, right? It's a really rough journey. And then I lose my case. And my attorney calls and he's like, the judge got this wrong. Like it's an overreach. Like we can go and we can win on appeal. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like that's my only hope left. And lawyers are your best friends when they get your money.
Yeah.
But this guy knew I had no money left, and he goes, "You have to give me 50 grand up front and pay me $4,000 a month to keep working." And I'm like, I don't have two nickels to rub together. What about the $90,000 that I've already given you? And so I was so crushed. I was just like despair. My entire career is gone. Everything I earned in life was gone. And so this is like the dark moment for real. And I would describe this. I'm sitting at the table with my girls, my girlfriend. The funny part of this is like teen girls chat like there's no tomorrow, right? So like there's no absence of noise in the room, but this was all running through my head, and I was just looking at my girls like they're never gonna see me quit anything. It's not an option. So what do we do? So I call my buddy Sam, and Sam is one of my best friends from high school. He's a musician that goes back for Goza. He's really talented, but he owns a media company. And I just called him, and I'm like, I can't keep fighting this, And he's like, it's like that's not an option. No. And he goes, start recording. Tell your story. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that, bro. I've never recorded my face doing anything. And so he literally was like, dude, just walk in your backyard, film your face, and start telling it from. And so I started Justice for Hope, my Facebook and all that, and I just started telling them.
Yeah.
And if you weren't involved in the fire department, like I didn't tell anybody I got fired. I didn't tell anybody I'd lost everything. So I finally like shared it on my personal page, And man, the support got huge. And I was. It took weeks to like go through it because you're recording like 8-minute, 9-minute, sections of it. And so everybody I knew got super invested, and I started doing it. And once I started that, like the decision was, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to fight it on my own. So I went pro se to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, and I filed my appeal I did all my briefs. And then I got lucky, man. I got there's a guy named Joe Altman. He's in Colorado, and he's been through the ringer, man. He challenged for Dominion voting and all these people. He had me on his podcast, and I've built a good friendship with him. He just announced he's running for governor of Colorado. So go vote for Joe Altman if you live out there. But through that, uh, I got connected, and then one call led to another, and then I'm on the phone, and Mountain States Legal Foundation wants to take me on and represent me. And so now I've got Mountain States Legal Foundation representing me in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. I'm currently pro se suing them in the state court for breach of contract and doing a really good job. Like I've been going at it with this law firm that represents them. So in this process, the biggest corruption happens, man. So I'm going through thousands of pages of case law, like my federal case file, all this stuff, and I'm reading through it. One night in the middle of my sleep, dude, like two synopsises of information connect, and I like shoot up out of bed, and I was like, "No way! There's no way!" And so to explain this connection to the listeners, man. So I had the investigation file, and then I'm going through and like early investigation, they're blatantly like there's election violations, and then August 1st, 2023, with no explanation and very suddenly, the chief deputy district attorney ends the criminal investigation, has no file. Nobody's getting charged. They can't see anything that happened at the legal, right? And his name was Andrew Vaughn. And so when I had an attorney, I didn't really know who I was litigating, right? But the law firm that I'm litigating against is called Vaughn and DeMuro Law. And the Vaughns are spelled the same. And I was like, there is no way. So I'm not law enforcement. I'm not a PI. I reach out to this company, Kinetic Investigations out of Evans, Georgia. And I'm like, this guy's a stud. He was like intelligence in the military. Like he's a legit PI, man. I send him the info. He kicks me back a report like the next day and goes, it's father and son. So the people that were on camera committing election violations fire me. I file a federal lawsuit. They get served. The following week, they hire a law firm. Well, that law firm happens to be the Vaughn is the lead attorney, is the dad of the chief deputy district attorney. And within like 3 days, father, I would assume, has contacted son, and son ends the criminal investigation. It makes it go away. And so I started talking about that, right? So now I'm out here, like, I'll name names, man. I contacted the DA's office once I found that. I said, this is wrong. This is corruption. We need to rectify this. DA flat out refused. He just this week announced he's running for Secretary of State. So I am counter campaigning against him because he's corrupt. And then, unfortunately, man, the biggest betrayal is the like 2 weeks ago, I got served by my attorney now suing me that represented me because after paying him like $90,000, and to be clear, the entire case file was my complaint, a reply to a motion to dismiss, a reply to summary judgment, and like one other document. They claim was over $150,000, and so now they're suing me for that other like $50,000 after losing my case, right? So I have 3 active court cases for this. Nobody has faced justice, and I'm still fighting, and that's why I'm here. And we are in the fight. I'm not going away.
Dude, that's just plumb freaking crazy. I can't tell a case that I work that comes together with all the smoking parts and this, that, and the other. The question I have, just understanding like the motivation for someone to manipulate a fire board election. Is that kind of the springboard into local politics, or why would I want to try to influence a heavily in a fire department board election?
Yeah, so that's the mystery here, man, because it's of the five that were in this scheme, only one remains 2 years later. Within 6 months, two were gone. Within a year, I think three or four were gone, or maybe it was 2 years, right? But only one remains. I think there's something to be said about like tribalism and like ego, right?
Yeah.
Once you set out to win something, you'll do that at all costs. There is some, if you control a local board with like, the budget's over $1 million. If you live in one housing area, like an HOA, and you control that board, you can funnel that money to support your HOA and your own more than other parts of the district. So there's that. But that's all speculative because I don't have that answer. I can't put myself in that mindset of why I would want to do something like that.
Yeah, that's
So I don't know.
yeah, that's just it's interesting. I was just wondering because you're just thinking about, because in law enforcement, you just try to find the motivation on the other end of like, why would we want to do this? Why
Yep.
would we? Um, so that was just my curiosity. Well, how are you? How's Eric?
You know what, man? I'm not. I'm blessed beyond any measure that I should ever be. I have two amazing kids that are absolute badasses, man. Like two teen girls have handled this better than anyone could ever expect. Like they're thriving in life. My oldest daughter turned 18. She now works. She's a nationally certified EMT. She works for an ambulance. She's in love with it. My youngest is, a straight A student in high school. I'm working. I'm building back. This is a different chapter. I have a social media presence now that like if you knew me, you would never guess that.
Most of the fire department
But I'm
guys I
fighting
know,
the fight, and like
most of the fire department guys I know are not social media personalities. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
oh no, yeah, we like like in you're in a fire department. There's policies against like so like I was very private and stuff, and now like my whole life seems to be online. But something like here is the thing, man. Like I never wanted to be a part of this. I never wanted to be in the midst of like something that's true. That like the mantra out there is like it's a conspiracy theory. When I'm the guy that's like, no, it's on high definition video. Here it is, and I just won't be quiet. I think these people thought they'd get rid of me and go away. I stayed quiet for 2 years to go through the court process. And then I just, like when you put somebody against the wall, it's all, man. And I'm just not, like I was a soldier.
Yeah.
I've been to war. This is nothing.
So I'll see this through to the end, and that's.
So I'll see this through to the end, and that's.
The conversation
honestly,
I had
man,
with
like
myself that
the conversation I had with myself that I started and I told you guys out loud is whatever the consequences were for doing the morally right thing, I was going to see through to the end. And guess what? I'm still seeing it through to the end. I didn't think it would take this long, but here I am, man, and I'm keeping that promise because
and it's important.
I'm a father.
I'm a citizen of this country, and it's important.
I'm a citizen of this country, and it's important. And I just believe in this. Like
what America's founded on in the
in
democratic process.
what America's founded on in the democratic process. And so if somebody did something to violate that, man, like I would be the biggest punk in the world for walking away from it and not doing what my duty is as a citizen of the United States, man, and as a father to show my kids that I'll never quit what's morally right. And so back to your question, how I'm doing. I am blessed beyond measure because I'm still able to fight. I'm being sued. I'm in debt. The stress has sucked, but man, I'm still here, Jeff, and I ain't going nowhere. Well, that law firm took everything to the DA, and the DA, quote unquote, investigated it. But again, there's that impropriety of the people that are litigating against me happen to be the dad of the guy with the authority, and he used that authority to end a criminal investigation. And so with laws like prosecutorial immunity, there's nothing to hold that conflict of interest and impropriety. There's no accountability for that. I've gone through the Secretary of State's office. They literally like emailed back like 3 months later and they had the wrong name for me. So they was like, "Hey Matthew, here's resources." I reached out to the FBI. That has not worked. I've reached out to the DJ. I have recently filed. It's probably been a month now. I did file a case with DOJ, civil rights.
Yeah.
I think in the last few months we've seen what they're doing a lot more. But no, nobody has ever been in trouble for what is captured on high definition film, and that's unfortunately that fight will maybe never see justice. But in the courts, I can hold them accountable for their actions, and that's what I intend to do. And with the federal case in the 10th Circuit Court, why I refuse really to abandon that, because it's tough, man. And why I did it by myself is because case law becomes something that other people can use to do bad, right?
Yeah.
And so I was a public servant that was a fire chief, and a judge ruled that because I was a fire chief and a high-ranking public official, that she didn't think that I was protected under the First Amendment. And so unless I challenge that and get a higher court to reverse that could be something that other public servant like have to deal with. And whistleblowers are usually high-ranking public servants because we're aware of information, right? Like you have to see it to know it's illegal, right? So it's very important that I get the 10th Circuit victory. It becomes permanent case law, and the recent court rulings favor that happening. Like I can't say I'm guaranteed anything, but there was just another case at the 10th Circuit, which becomes binding precedent that the court then has to rule on my case in the same manner. That makes it pretty clear that the court is rejecting any limiting of First Amendment rights. Just because I'm a public servant does not mean I lose my First Amendment rights. And so the Supreme Court has ruled on that. I can't guarantee, but I expect to win my 10th Circuit case and go back to then the federal court with that same judge. And then I would be able to enter into trial where I get to present actual evidence. But it's really important to me to protect other public servants. I lost my public service career as far as being a first responder.
Yeah.
I'm on to a different career path, which, hopefully that when the damages and all that get computed, but I'm okay, man. Like I'm figuring it out, the lawsuit by my attorney, like you can't take something no matter what. I mean, they could take blood on a monthly basis and sell it if they want, right? But like if I don't have it to give, what's the punitive there?
Yeah.
So it is what it is, man. Like resiliency is just kind of not an option. I'm a dad, and I got to feed them, so that's always going to be a priority.
Will you?
We'll see the rest. We'll see the other chapter.
Will you somehow, and we'll figure this out, but as your case status
I can't hear you, brother.
Hang on a second.
There you are. I got it,
Yeah, it's my thing here was
welcome to the Jeff Robertson Show.